So far we have discussed the background of modernism and modern literature, okay? Especially the historical and political background. And what were the essential traits of modernism? We also discussed that modernism is an umbrella term, okay? And two important points that are very essential or that are really pertinent to understand this European drama are realism and naturalism, because they are written on the both themes, realism and naturalism. What realism is?
Realism, the realistic world, believing in something concrete, something before you, the environment, what you experienced yourself, what you see at the moment, not talking about or, thinking about something which is not a reality, that is anything beyond realistic view
World.
or world, it's not counted. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Yes, you are right. And how we view this realism in contrast to the other prominent themes of this movement before realism. Like the important theme before this, it was like the world presented in the literature was pretty much idealistic and imaginary. Okay, like romantic. So this realism is in direct contrast to the world that is imaginary or that exists only in imagination, and that is pretty much romantic. Okay. So this realism is applied in different and multiple ways. Okay. And this movement started in the novels, especially during the 19th century. Okay. Some specific genres of literature, they represent some particular movements, like romanticism. What type of genre we have the glimpse of romanticism? Prose, poetry, or novel, or what? Or drama? In romantic literature, poetry. So poetry is the genre that represent romanticism. Similarly, realism can be best understood only in the genre of novel. Okay? So, in order to understand this realism in drama, we have to keep in mind that realism was initiated in 19th century not in drama but in novels. Okay, like provincial novels of Hardy, okay, Victorian novels, okay, of Charles Dickens, okay. They give very minute type of detail and the realistic picture of the societies. So they are called realistic novels. Okay, and this realism, this is a rejection of classicism and the doctrine of arts for art's sake. You know what is art for art's sake?
Yes.
What is the meaning of art for art's sake?
Art for art's sake.
Yes.
That is to depict creativity based on the lives, of the people or the cultures.
No, art for art's sake, the idea behind it, art does not have any purpose outside the art. Okay? It does not have any moral purpose. It does not have any political purpose. I am making the art only for the art's sake. Okay?
So it doesn't have any purpose.
Yes.
Apart from.
Yes, apart from the creation of art. Art must be created only for the aesthetic pleasure. This is art for art's sake. Okay? So this realism is in contrast to the classicism, romanticism, and the doctrine of art for art's sake. Okay? And what the artist do in realism. The concern of the artist in realism is with the here and now, whatever he is experiencing, what he is witnessing around him, that finds expression only in the form of art. So the basic and the prime concern of the artist is here and now and everyday events of life. Okay? And he is deeply attached to the environment in which he or she is living, the artist is living. Okay? And he is reflecting whatever he is experiencing in that sort of environment. Okay? So, if the environment, we talk about the environment, what is more important thing? There are some certain phenomenons like a political phenomenon, social phenomenon, okay? Sorry, economic phenomenon. So all of them, they find reflection in the piece of art, under the category of realism. Okay, and this was also an anti-romantic movement in Germany. Okay, realism. And some of the foremost writers of these this realism is Comte, Condition Humaine. Condition Humaine is the catchphrase. Condition Humaine means the human condition. Okay, this is the catchphrase, and it is influenced by Comte, Darwin, Feuerbach. Okay, so all of these writers like Comte, the name of the Comte's work is Cours de Philosophie Positive. Cours de Philosophie Positive. Okay. Write down this book. It's a very important book. Or we call it Comte's Positivism. Comte's Positivism. The name of the book is Cours de Philosophie Positive.
So Comte's is book. The name of
the writer.
The writer.
Feuerbach and Darwin, and the writers are Feuerbach, another German, and Darwin. So their concern of these writers is about the human condition, its existence, and human environment.
Was it written in English?
Feuerbach, Darwin. Okay. These are two more writers who influence the realism. Okay. Who are considered the proponent of this, or who are considered to be at the root of this movement. Why the people who wrote under this movement of realism, they were highly influenced by the positivist attitude theory of Comte, Feuerbach, and Darwin's theory of natural selection. There are some more important events in the history of advancement of science, like 1839, development of photography. So how did it influence literature and arts? Photography. How it influenced?
It influenced, it has a lot of influence, on literature. For instance, there were a lot of, dynasties.
No. Like the creation of the art. Okay.
That is where I'm going, sir. Some of the dynasties, were depicted initially. They used paint.
Yes.
To paint those, but with advent of photography.
It is more realistic.
It is more realistic.
Okay, it is not only realistic, it is the faithful record of the events, what is going on.
Because
Okay.
like Aristotle and Socrates had it been that the photography was invented during their time, there could have been, a real picture of them. But now it was made of sculpture during their time. People use these woods and,
Yes, to carve out the images only.
yes,
Okay.
on the image.
But this photography, the scientific advancement, it also initiated the realism, or it also influenced realism, because the photography has the more faithful and recorded document of the reality, what was being felt at the time. Okay, and the painters of the time, they found, like Courbet. Okay, C-O-R-B-E, Courbet. This painter, he was strongly opposed to the idealization of art. Okay, and he said the art should reflect realism, and it should be more democratic. Democratic means it should give the voice to the people from the real world, that are the people who are pretty much common, laymen. Okay, and he says that the peasants and workers, they are the most fittest for realism. Peasants and workers. Why? Because through their workings of the life, and so far in the traditional painting or photography, you will not find the space for these type of laymen. Okay,
It's only for the elite.
it's only for the elite. Okay, because the painter would the painters would be paid by the elites for their paintings. Okay,
Had it been that there is a romanticism painter who does it just for passion,
yes, it was also very imaginary. They had nothing to do with with the words. And some other writer, like his name is Champfleury. Okay. His essay De Realism. He was highly influenced by Courbet. Okay. He was highly influenced by Courbet, and he said that the hero of the how the realism be introduced in literature, Champfleury.
So is it CHAMP?
Champfleury. Champfleury.
Okay, P F L. PFLE.
Yes, Champfleury. He was a French writer, Champfleury. He was influenced by Courbet, and he says that in order to understand the influence of realism in literature, the hero of the novel must be an ordinary man. The hero of the novel should be and must be an ordinary man.
Why is that?
Because the ordinary man, the working, the life, they are pretty realistic.
They
Okay.
are more realistic than
Yes.
elite.
Yes,
Their lives are more open.
yes, because they are large in number. The elites are the minority everywhere. Okay? Suppose it's pretty simple. If you want to judge India, you cannot see only 2 or 3% of the
Elite.
elites. Okay? In order to see the more realistic picture of India, you need to go to the common people. Isn't it? So that's why Champfleury says that the hero of the novel should be an ordinary man. Okay.
That is, if you want to understand the literature or
Yes, the literature of reality. Okay. Suppose if someone is writing on the life of the queens and the kings, okay, he is giving the minute detail. Of course, to an extent, you can say that he is talking about the realistic detail of the working of the life, okay, but they are not reflective of the multitude, the masses, okay. Some other writers like Balzac in France, George Eliot in England, Balzac in France, write down. Balzac in France, Eliot, George Eliot in England, and William Dean Howells in America.
Yeah. Spell.
Balzac, B-A-L-Z-A-C, Balzac. Balzac. George Eliot. Balzac was a French realist novelist. Okay. George Eliot in England.
So why all these realistic literary writers were from French, or mostly?
Most of the literary or like artistic movements started in France, because in 1796, 1719, France was the land of the what do you call French Revolution. So for the first time, the people, they overthrew the monarchy. Okay, in 1798 around, or 1719 something, isn't it? So France was the precursor and the pioneers of the linguistic or the literary freedom. Okay, that's why in humanities, if you don't give the intellectual freedom, it will not flourish. Okay, for the first time, the people in the France, they were more liberated than other European counterparts. Okay. And similarly, in Germany was also the land of the many, the pioneer of the many literary and artistic movements.
So why the country is now turning into something different? There's no freedom of religion.
Now, it's another debate, It's another debate. We will talk about this thing on other occasion, but now let's come to the point. So Balzac was a French novelist, and George Eliot was from England, and William Dean Howell in America. William Dean Howells. Immermann from Germany.
William.
Dean Howells.
Yes.
William Dean Howells in America. Immermann, I-M-M-E-R-M-A-N. Immermann from Germany. And Dickens. Charles Dickens.
Dickens is from
England.
okay, Dickens.
Yes. They are supposed to be, or they are considered to be the precursors of the realism in novel. Okay. So historically, we find that realism started in the genre of novel, not in drama. Okay. To be more precise, to give the more precise definition of realism is, it's a recurrent mode in various eras and literary forms. Write down this definition. Okay. The precise definition I am giving. A recurrent mode. It's a recurrent mode in various eras and literary forms of representing human life and experience in literature.
Sorry, sir, I'm not faster right. A recurrent mode in
Various eras and literary forms.
various eras.
Yes. And literary forms of representing human life and experience in literature. And there are some other aspects of realism. Initially, when realism was introduced, there was a lot of rejection and criticism of realism. Initially, it was rejected, okay, and it was described as undesirable and negative sort of element. Okay, why? Because the people were so much possessed by the romantic ideals. Okay, so they were not ready to accept realism.
Love for nature.
Yes,
So
pretty much idealistic. Like, why they are supposed to read something very extraordinary, ordinary sort of thing. Okay, so it was rejected negatively, or it is also considered as undesirable element. Courbet himself disliked the label. Courbet, okay, Courbet the painter, he also himself rejected the label, though used it. He used realism in his works or in his arts, but he disliked the idea. Okay. Champfleury's realism is considered as the doctrine of realism. Okay. That's a very landmark essay, Champfleury's realism. Write down this, underline this one. A manifesto or doctrine. A manifesto of the doctrine. If you are aware of the word, the novel Madame Bovary, it was a French novel. Write down the name, Madame Bovary, Bovary. Bovary. Madame Bovary was written by Flaubert or Flaubert, Laubert.
Madame
Bovary. Madame Bovary, written by Flaubert. I don't know how to pronounce it in German or in German language. This Madame Bovary is considered as the greatest work of realism. Okay, and Flaubert himself disliked the label of realism. Okay, so the people who introduced realism, they all outrightly discard this idea or label of realism initially. Okay.
So like, is it Socrates or Aristotle? He criticized the poetry, but he also
Wrote. Yes, it happens. It happens. You have certain people who have their mixed feeling.
You eat the food, but you dislike
Dislike?
its flavor.
Okay, so Balzac, let us talk about Balzac. He is supposed to be one of the major precursors of realism. He regarded human beings and analyzed the characters as a zoologist. So it's like a very scientific sort of study in literature. Okay. And he expressed the intention of following Buffon's work on zoology in order to write a natural history of man. Buffon's work on zoology is considered as the treatise on the natural history of man. Okay. So Balzac followed the suit, and he viewed his characters as a zoologist view. Okay, got it? His approach about the characters is very, very scientific. Okay.
So does he consider the world as a zoo?
Yes. This was a scientific approach, and this came near to the method of field guide. Field guide means like the people they are talking about each and every aspect, what a zoologist do. Okay.
Jungle justice.
Zoologist means he studies the very minute detail of the human being, of that particular
Okay, I
animal.
thought he was comparing the animal's life with that of the human.
Yes, the certain characters. Suppose if Kamran is being presented in the novel of Balzac, Balzac would not present me only as a thinking human being. Okay, he would also comment on the biological function, the biological function of Kamran. You got the idea?
But
Okay. So only the emotional,
Not the rational, not
yes,
the rational.
the only emotional and rational human being will not be presented. he will be a full flesh and blood character, okay, with all his bodily functions. Okay, even there would be a comment on the system of the excreta. Yes, this is what the biologists do. Okay. So another writer in France, Émile Zola and Maupassant. Maupassant was a Spanish writer, I think, or French. Guy de Maupassant. He was a French writer, Guy de Maupassant. Maupassant and Émile Zola. They are also considered the main proponents or having the prominent place in the history of realism, and they also considered as the exponents of realism. But Émile Zola's reputation is established not because of their realism but naturalism. We will talk about the naturalism because there is a very thin line between realism and naturalism. Okay? Naturalism is something like very extreme form of realism. Okay? So, Zola's essay, Les Romains Expérimentaux. Émile Zola's essay, Les Romains Expérimentaux. It was written in 1880. And it is considered the main statement about naturalism. So you find it was a very intercontinental, international type of movement. But it was not limited to France or in Britain. You will find the effects of this realism and naturalism in Russian literature as well. Okay, like outside France, we find Tolstoy, okay, Gogol and Gorky, Maxim Gorky, okay, and to a lesser extent in Turgenev. The Russian literature, there are four prominent names who also initiated the idea of realism through their works. Okay. What is the difference? Let us be clear about the romantic literature and realism. Okay, so this realistic fiction is highly opposed to the romantic fiction. Okay, it deals with the reality of life, whereas romantic fiction or romantic literature only deals with the fictional and imaginary sort of world, willing suspension of disbelief. Okay, you must have heard this word, willing suspension of disbelief. You have to suspend your disbelief to enjoy literature. Okay, you have to make yourself believe in what is being said. Otherwise, you cannot.
Yes, I understand. I got it.
So, romanticism is more picturesque, very fantastic, very adventurous, and heroic, and it is very far from actuality. Okay, whereas the realism is whatever is being represented in life, that is realism. Okay. And realism is understood only in terms of the effect on the readers. What type of effect it is creating on readers, okay? And it represents life and the social world as it seems to the common reader. And it evokes a sense of reality in readers. Whenever the readers read this sort of literature, they have the idea that this is pretty much realistic. Okay, so it evokes a sense of reality. And the subject matter of the realism is very commonplace and very, very ordinary, a very minute detail. Okay, not the rarer aspects. Okay, suppose rare aspect. I am a teacher, I am giving the example. In front of the students, my image is very generous type of, like, it would be like a very gentle kind of man who is interacting with the students, very, very means humorous, okay, have very good reports with the colleagues, with the students, isn't it? This is the image of the teacher. A teacher must have some rarer aspect of life as well. He can be angry, he can be greedy, okay? He can be voluptuous, okay? Very lecherous in his some personal details of personal life. So realism does not, comment on the rarest aspects. Rather, it comments on the very, very minute details. Okay. So that the readers might have the what do you call the sense of reality.
So it does not, pay much attention to the personal life.
It has the personal life, like some of the aspects,
it's
yeah.
Emotional.
No, some aspects that are not very common. That are not very common sort of thing. Okay. Like for example, Daniel Defoe is also considered as a sort of realistic writer, but he wrote the novels much before realism started. Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. Okay. The minute detail of Robinson Crusoe on a shipwreck. You must have heard about Robinson Crusoe or not? Have you read? Robinson Crusoe is a classical novel. It's the story of a shipwreck. Robinson Crusoe is going on an expedition on a sea voyage, and he has a shipwreck and he is cast away on an isolated island, and how he builds the island into a colony. Okay, he makes the entire colony. Okay, so the minute details of the adventures of Robinson Crusoe gives the impression of reality on the mind of the readers. Okay, so it's very rare sort of thing, but it also creates a sense of reality in readers. Okay. Other thing is that Franz Kafka. Kafka's characters, they also evoke a sense of rationalism. Like this novel or novella, Metamorphosis, it talks about a very fantastic incident. One person who is transformed into a cockroach. That is highly most unlikely. Okay, that cannot happen. But the depiction of the emotion is presented in such a way, the readers, they have a sense of reality. Okay, whatever is being said in front of them, they directly connect to the Kafka's character, Gregor Samsa. Okay, so ultimate thing is that to create an affinity with the readers and to make them believe that what is being presented, this is real. Okay. Now come to the naturalism. Sorry, realism drama. We will come to the naturalism later. So, realism in drama, it is a less extreme form of naturalism. Okay, and Ibsen, whose play we are going to read, this Adolph's House, he was the proponent of realism in drama. Okay, and he rejected the concept of the well-made plays. Before the advent of realism in drama, the subject matter of the plays or the subject matter, it was also very, very much dissociated to the reality. Like Renaissance drama, the most golden period of drama. Who are the characters of Renaissance literature, Renaissance theatre? They were not, were they common men? No. Shakespearean characters, who were they? They were not common men. They were the whom? They were the kings and queens. Okay, all the wealthy people. Okay. So, one realistic picture you can also grasp in the work of what do you call, Canterbury Tales, Chaucer's. Okay, Fred Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. It is also influenced by the realistic ideals, because the image that he presents through different characters give the glimpse of the realistic world, the realistic society. So if you trace the history of realism, you will find that Chaucer's Canterbury Tales is one of the earliest pieces of realism. Okay? So as for drama, Ibsen rejected the concept of well-made plays, because all the well-made plays, they have very mechanical type of artifices. Okay? And the plot was also very pretty much artificial. Okay? There was no connection between the among the characters and the audience. Okay? So he outrightly rejected the exaggerated theatricalism. Okay? Well, on stage, whatever being represented before Ibsen, it was pretty much exaggerated before. Okay? It was not a realistic picture of life. Okay, Shrif? So you will find the impact of Ibsen.
So, sir, in realism, there is no exaggeration.
No.
Only in fictional.
Only the exaggeration happened only in the form of what do you call in Renaissance literature. Okay. It was most exaggerated. Even in the movies, you will find the movies, the dialogue delivery is pretty much exaggerated. Who speaks like this? Do you see the dialogue of the movie? Do they really present the day-to-day conversation of the life? It's pretty much exaggerated, isn't it? The only realistic actor of Indian Bollywood movie was Irfan Khan. Have you seen him? Irfan Khan? Are you aware of his name?
I have been. Yes, I have been.
He died just last year. Irfan Khan was the only man who would give only a very realistic type of acting. There was no distinction at all. Whatever he was playing, whether it was a dialogue delivery or was he giving the performance. Okay. Sometimes the directors would say, Irfan, do a very bad type of acting in this movie, because the audience, they are not accustomed to this type of realistic, realistic acting. Okay. So this idea of realism in drama outrightly rejected exaggeration. Okay. And it also influenced George Bernard Shaw. Have you heard of Shaw?
George Bernard Shaw.
Yes.
Former UK Prime Minister.
No. George Bernard Shaw, GB Shaw, the playwright of Ireland, Irish. Candida, St. John's,
Bernard Shaw.
Tom Jones. No?
Is it two different Bernard Shaw?
GB Shaw. He was not the president, Prime Minister. Who told you? He was the dramatist of Ireland.
Okay.
19th century, sometimes.
Okay.
Okay. So, George Bernard Shaw and Strindberg, Strindberg, Strindberg. Shaw. Strindberg. They were also influenced by the realism. Okay. And subsequently, on a whole generation of prominent 20th century dramatists, we find the influence of realism. Okay? Clear? Apart from this realism in England, we have socialist realism. Write down this word, socialist realism in the theatre. That was largely a Russian phenomenon. socialist realism. What is the idea behind socialist realism? They would talk about the poverty, the hunger, the squalor of the common people, okay?
In
And
society.
yes, a very underprivileged type of society who is grappling with the day-to-day lives, economic hardships, okay? So this was largely a Russian phenomenon. And the Marxism was at the root of this socialist realism. The important name of the Russian socialist realism, Anatoly. Can you write Anatoly? Anatoli. Anatoly. Lunacharsky.
Anatoly.
Lunacharsky. 1975 to 1933. He invented this word, socialist realism. Anatoly Lunacharsky. So this Soviet theater, it developed in Soviet Russia. It has the influence in many Russian, many what you call Marxist and communist countries. Even after the fall of Kremlin, okay, or the fall of USSR, you can find the influence of socialist realism in the drama of all these countries, okay, who officially don't claim themselves to be the Marxist countries, but they also follow the socialist realism in theater, okay.
So when Russia was USSR, was it under Tsar monarchy or?
No. Tsar's monarchy was overthrown in 1917. Okay. Russian Revolution happened in 1917. Okay. So it was the influence of the Marxism, and how the classics or classical text were interpreted in contemporary terms, okay, so that they become more relevant to the day-to-day life, to the contemporary world. Okay. So this was the impact of socialist realism. Okay. The classical writings of Greece and Rome, or Greek and Roman literature, they were reinterpreted in order to make them more relevant during the contemporary periods. Okay. And we have different type of realism. One important realism is psychological realism.
Begin.
Psychological realism. What do you infer from the psychological realism? Psychological?
Psychological hardships, inner hardships.
No. Realism, not hardships.
Okay.
It delves deep the psychological working of the particular character, how the character thinks. Okay, the whole.
Like in this Hamlet, when his father was killed, and he wanted to take revenge on his uncle. He do think there was a time he wanted to take revenge, but his uncle was praying.
Yes.
So psychologically, he was thinking that if he killed
Yes,
him,
yes, to an extent you can say that whatever being said, and the most important sort of psychological realism comes into the form of stream of consciousness technique. Okay, we discussed the stream of consciousness technique, the modern century phenomenon, 20th century. This is the analysis of thought and feeling, how one particular character is thinking. And through the analysis of the thought and the feeling, the nature and the personality of the particular character is being presented. So this you cannot say that this is just a literary technique, but it is considered a vast historical phenomenon with economic, ideological, philosophical, and religious ramifications. Why I'm talking about religious ramifications? It also talks about the impact of religion on the common masses. Okay, and this is neatly indicated in Frederick Jameson. We will read Frederick Jameson when we will read postmodernism. So he says the realistic mode is one of the most complex and vital realizations of Western culture, to which it is well nigh unique. Okay, so it is considered as the very most complex and vital realization of the Western culture. Okay, how if you read the realistic novel, realistic drama, you find that across the world how Western culture dominated and influenced and seeped to the mind. Okay. Now come to the idea of naturalism. Okay, it is pretty much synonymous to realism. As I discussed or mentioned, that this is a very thin line between realism and naturalism. Okay, and it deals with the works of literature which use realistic methods and subjects to convey belief. And what is the belief? That everything that exists is a part of nature. Everything that exists is a part of nature and can be explained by natural and material causes, and not by supernatural, spiritual, or paranormal causes. Okay, like let's take the example of the drama from what do you call? Let's take the example of this Dr. Faustus. Okay, what is being presented on the stage? Some supernatural elements. The character of Dr. Faustus can be defined only in terms of supernatural elements, and the things they are pretty much paranormal, that is beyond the normal things. Okay, so naturalism says that paranormal and supernatural things cannot define the characters. The characters can be defined only in terms of the natural atmosphere and the concrete things that he is undergoing or he is experiencing. Okay, like if I say I am suffering, and I say that my suffering is because I am destined to suffer by Almighty God. Naturalism does not recognize this fact. Okay, naturalism will will probe or will analyze my suffering only in relation to the materialistic reality. Okay, so idea of God as the outward agency who is governing the world is also rejected through the naturalism. Okay, naturalism means whatever character is experiencing, what he is doing, it is or it will be analyzed only in relation to the circumstances, not by the outward or divine agency. And similar to realism, this idea of naturalism also influenced by Darwin's biological theories. What was the proposition of Darwin? What did he say?
Regarding creator.
About creation, what did he say?
That is, we all human beings are from monkey. Well,
Yes.
yes. But that idea was, many scholars rejected that idea because
Of course.
In monkey there are different species. In monkey, baboon, gorilla, chimpanzee, and what have you. But human beings have known that species. So if human beings emanated from monkey, what type of what species out of monkey the human
And how does it have the clear ramifications on the religious belief? What was the religious belief about existence across the religions?
Across the religion, all
What was the idea about the creation of man in religions, different religions?
in different religion, in Islam, man was created, made from Adam, and Adam was created from moon and
Yes, the God Himself created a full developed human being, and He sent it. Okay, so this idea of divine agency, who created the man, and He also governs the man's action, governs the universe, is also rejected in naturalism. Okay, you got it? So it was directly in contrast to the religion as the determining factor, or the factor that governs the human beings.
okay, so now the issue is this realism. They are talking about concrete things, the things that exist within the environment, and they quite sure know that nothing exists by mistake. Nothing comes to existence by mistake. Even this structure we will see, there was a time when there was no this structure,
Yes.
and there was a time when this structure was at the developmental stage. There was a time when this structure was at the developmental stage, and now this structure is now into being. So what about themselves, the realistic ideologies?
Yes.
What do they think about themselves? How do they come into existence if they reject the idea of God?
They were outrightly rejecting the idea of God, because sometimes if you think not about the creation, if you see the kind of oppression that is being, the kind of exploitation that is visible in the society, okay, the people, they can easily become atheist. Okay, you got the idea or
I
not?
got it.
The kind of oppression, the torture around, and there is no sense of justice.
I got it.
So anyone can easily become an atheist.
Because he may think, if there is God, why should I suffer?
Why? Yes. Why should I suffer? Why he is not intervening?
And why the social classes?
Why is he not
distract-
intervening? Yes. Like Marx, why he gave the idea of religion as the opium of masses? Because he witnessed the outright abuses of Christianity. Okay, the exploitation of human beings in the name of religion. Even in Islam, in the Muslims, if you if you travel here and there, you will find how the religion is abused by the same people who claim to be the flag bearers. The flag bearers. Okay, so everywhere the religion was most abused. It became the weapon to exploit the people. That's why these people, they outrightly rejected the idea. And to an extent, in their understanding, they were right. According to their understanding,
Yes,
whatever they witnessed,
I got this.
they concluded whatever they witnessed,
That's
they experienced.
I think-
Anyway, let me finish this point. So this idea was also influenced by Marx and Darwin's biological theories. Okay, Comte's application of this positivism, scientific ideas to the study of society. Okay, Comte gave the idea of application of scientific ideas to the study of society. And another name is Taine, T-A-I-N-E. Write down this name, Taine. Taine's application of deterministic theories to literature. Taine, T-A-I-N-E. Okay. So these are the influences on naturalism. Now I am finishing here, and in the next class I will be completing this one. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, I have recorded this lecture.